Hi Reddit, I'm a 21-year-old woman, and this post is about my brother's girlfriend, Laura, not her real name. She's 18, and they've been together for about 8 months. At first, I really liked Laura. She seemed down to earth, especially compared to his previous girlfriends, who were kind of odd. Laura comes from a family with less money than ours. We're not rich, but we're comfortable. Lately, I've started feeling like she might be using us. A few weeks ago, my brother took her on a trip to Cuba and paid for everything because she didn't have the money. She still owes him $800 and hasn't paid him back yet. She also borrowed my mom's suitcase for the trip and still hasn't returned it or even unpacked her things. Before the trip, she told me she wasn't sure she wanted to stay with him because she felt like she hadn't experienced her young adult life fully, like going out to clubs and partying. During the trip, my brother told me that guys were constantly giving her attention, and she seemed to enjoy it. He mentioned that she was distant with him at times, but at the same time, they were still taking pictures kissing and acting like a couple. It's confusing because I know she wants to break up with him, but she isn't doing anything about it, and instead, she's being rude to him. What's also been bothering me is how she's acted about money and things. When we first met, I was cleaning out my closet, and she offered to help. I thought it was just her being kind, but now I feel like she just wanted me to give her clothes. I ended up giving her some really expensive dresses, like $300 each, which I don't wear anymore because they don't fit me, but now I regret it. She's also taken a bunch of expensive things from my mom after my mom and stepdad broke up, like her old bed and kitchen appliances. I do her lash lifts, and I paid for the supplies, but she never paid me back like she promised. She lives an hour away, and after the Cuba trip, she asked me to come to her house to do her lashes again. I refused because I didn't want to waste more money on gas, especially when she hasn't paid me for the supplies. Recently, she's been getting more and more rude. She texted me out of the blue saying, "So I need a costume, are you gonna give me one or do I need to get it myself?" I was taken aback. Why should I be responsible for her costume? When I asked if she had any idea what she wanted to be, she just said, "Ike." She was also mad at me for doing the Halloween decorations without her because she wanted to help, but I did it on a Saturday night around 9 p.m., so I didn't think it was relevant for her to come over and help. She wants to go clubbing for Halloween, but honestly, I'm not in the mood to party, and I have a lot of homework. My brother wants me to go so we can hang out with some friends, but now he wants to go to the club to check on her and see if she's going to cheat because he thinks she might have already cheated on him. I also forgot to add that during their vacation, a few things happened that made me feel uneasy about her. For example, she spent an hour on the phone with her mom, causing them to miss a reservation my brother had made. While they were there, they made some friends, and she always wanted to hang out with them instead of spending time alone with my brother. When they got back, my brother caught the flu, and I was shocked by how she treated him. He was really sick, throwing up and having stomach issues, and she seemed annoyed by it. Even when he was struggling in the bathroom, she just sat there on her phone, completely ignoring him. On the flight home, he was so sick that he threw up on a lady while rushing to the bathroom, and she didn't even try to comfort him or help clean up. Now, I don't know what to do. I feel like she's using us, but it doesn't completely feel like her. I'm also conflicted because she told me things in private, and I'm unsure if I should tell my brother, even though he kind of already knows and has a gut feeling. So, Ida for wanting him to break up with her? Additional information from OOP, I think there might be some misunderstandings here, so let me clarify. My brother paid for the Cuba trip up front because it cost $1,200 per person, and she didn't have the money at the time. She agreed to pay him back her share, and that's why she still owes him $800. He covered the full amount initially, but it wasn't meant to be a gift. It was more like a loan that she hasn't fully repaid yet. Regarding the clothes and furniture, I didn't mind giving her old clothes that didn't fit me, and my mom didn't need the furniture, so at the time, it seemed like helping her out. But I started feeling like she's taking advantage because she also borrowed my mom's suitcase and hasn't returned it yet, and there are other things adding up, like unpaid lash supplies and some insensitive comments. About the flight, I didn't expect her to literally clean up his vomit, but showing a bit of concern or care for someone you're in a relationship with, especially when they're really sick, seems reasonable to me. He wasn't sick before the flight, he got sick after brushing his teeth with the water in Cuba, and it hit him unexpectedly on the plane. I totally get that she's 18 and trying to figure out her life, and she doesn't have to decide if she's going to be with him forever right now. But if she's already uncertain about wanting to stay with him and doesn't seem interested in spending much quality time together on what was supposed to be a couple's trip, she's not a bad person. I just want my brother to be with someone who genuinely wants to be with him and cares about him. He's my little brother, and I think part of the reason I'm so protective is because of what he went through in the past. When my mom was with my stepdad, he was psychologically abusive to my brother, calling him names and putting him down. At the time, I wasn't living with them, and I feel guilty for not being there to protect him. My mom didn't really know about it, and she was also being abused herself, so it wasn't an easy situation for anyone. Because of all this, my brother is very sensitive now, and I can't help but want to look out for him. I know he needs to make his own decisions, but it's hard not to feel like I need to be there for him more, given what he's been through. I realize that I can't control his choices, but that guilt makes me want to step in more than I probably should. I just want to make sure he's with someone who cares for him and treats him well. Comments where Op has replied, Oop on her brother's age and how the budget came out for him to pay for everything. Oop, my brother is 19 years old. I didn't leave that out on purpose, it just slipped my mind while writing. He decided to pay for everything up front for their Cuba trip because she didn't have the money at the time. He paid for the entire trip up front, which cost $1,200 per person. She was supposed to pay him back her share, but she still owes him $800 out of that amount. Oop on her brother being sick when flying back home. Oop, he didn't know he was sick before the flight. He got sick after brushing his teeth with the water in Cuba, which caused him to fall ill on the plane ride home. It all hit him suddenly while he was in the air, and he didn't have any warning beforehand. It was an unfortunate situation for him and everyone else involved. Commenter 1, she does sound like she's using you, though it might have started out as genuine. Pointing out to your brother might backfire. Maybe casually mention how surprised you were that she didn't help him one aisle, or that he should remind her about the suitcase because it's not good manners to keep something that long. NTA Oop, I know she's really kind and a nice person in general, and I don't think she started out wanting to use us. I was genuinely happy to help her in the beginning. But lately, she just seems off, and it feels like she's not interested in being with him anymore. I don't want to assume the worst about her or think badly of her, but these situations are making me question things. Commenter 2, tell her to return the suitcase and stop doing her any favors. Your brother doesn't trust her, he should break up. Update, October 26, 2024. Hey guys, I wanted to do a little update and also share more about the past so you can understand where I'm coming from. First, thank you for all your comments. You guys think I'm not the asshole, which is reassuring, but I still kind of feel like one. I've been trying to respond to everyone, but there were a lot of questions about my brother's age. He's 19, not 21, and he's definitely not a predator, don't worry. Part of why I'm so invested in this situation is because I can relate to his girlfriend. When I was 18, the legal drinking age here allowed me to experience a phase of partying and living my life to the fullest. Back then, I was in a 3-year relationship, and we went through the pandemic together. I wasn't feeling the relationship anymore, so I broke up with him and lived my life. I just want to say that it wasn't an easy decision. We actually got back together after a year and a half of being single, which is kind of crazy, but it felt like a fresh start. The point is, when I saw her and how she acted, I saw a bit of myself in her. I brought up my own experiences to her because I knew how lonely it could feel when you're unsure about what you want, and no one around you seems to understand. I thought it might help her feel like she could trust me, but now I feel stuck in the middle and I don't know if I regret what I did. This week, my brother confronted her about the way she responded to me through text, telling her it hurt him and that he didn't accept her talking to his family like that. She got upset and felt like we were all ganging up on her, so she decided not to stay the night and went back to her house. My brother was mad and called me. He was telling me that he wanted to break up, but since she owed him money and he wanted his money back. That's when I told him what she had confessed to me, and I felt awful because I had promised her I wouldn't say anything. I initiated the conversation, so I felt like the fallout was all my fault. But this morning, my brother called me before work and said she texted him, asking for a break. He was furious and told me he planned to get all his things from her place and end it. She's going out to a big city with her sister next weekend and he thinks she wants to use that time to meet other guys, and he made it clear that if that's what she wants, he's done. She said that wasn't her intention and that she just needed some time, but he wasn't buying it. Now I feel even worse because I can't help but think that if I hadn't shared my experience with her, maybe this wouldn't be happening. But then again, I keep telling myself it would have come up eventually. Some of you are asking why I'm so invested, and here's some background. My brother is a kind and gentle person, but the problem is that people often see his kindness as a weakness, just like my stepdad did, and they take advantage of it. My stepdad was psychologically abusive toward my brother, constantly calling him names and mistreating him. I didn't include this in my original post because it's something that still hurts me deeply. At the time, I wasn't living with them because I chose to stay with my dad to avoid dealing with my stepdad's behavior. My stepdad couldn't manipulate me, and I didn't let him get under my skin. I was the only one who would stand up to him, and things got really heated after my mom finally broke up with him. One night, Things got so bad that my brother showed up at my dad's place with all his belongings because my stepdad had almost physically assaulted him. Thankfully, my brother got out before things escalated. My mom didn't fully know what was happening because she was also dealing with her own abuse from my stepdad. But that night, she realized it was enough and ended the relationship. Afterward, my brother moved in with me and my dad. Later, when my mom sold the old house and bought her current one, she and my brother moved in together. They're both doing better now, but they're still in therapy because they went through a lot. After he told me everything that happened, I felt so guilty for not being there to protect him. It still feels like I failed in my role as a big sister and a daughter. Growing up, I always felt responsible for protecting my brother. When our parents got divorced, I tried to keep him occupied whenever they were fighting so he wouldn't hear the arguments. I heard everything, but I wanted to make the divorce as smooth as possible for him. That experience left me feeling like it was my responsibility to shield him from anything painful or traumatic. It might seem like I'm too involved, but with his previous girlfriend, I was hesitant and distant, and I know that hurt him. So, this time, I made more of an effort to be present and not let my doubts keep me from trying to support his relationship. I didn't want to come off as harsh or unwelcoming to someone he cares about. But now, I feel stuck in between. I haven't talked to her since their fight. I don't want her to think I'm mad at her, but I also don't want to upset my brother if he finds out I'm still in touch with her. I'm not sure if she even wants to talk to me anymore. It feels like she was trying to distance herself, and maybe I just didn't catch on to that. I'm mad at myself because I finally tried to be present and supportive, but I feel like I ended up making things worse. I don't know what to do now. My brother's reaction to all of this has been to focus on himself. He's mad and wants to move on and just focus on getting back in shape and living his life. I don't know how to feel about his reaction. It seems like he's trying to brush it off, but I know it's hard on his ego, and he's hurting. I don't know if it's the update that you guys wanted, but it's all I know for now. Next story, caught my husband having sex with his ex-wife during our adopted son's b-day party. When I finally asked for divorce, it turns out this wasn't his first time cheating with her. I'm honestly a mess and I don't know what to do, so any advice would be appreciated. I, 27F, and my husband, 37M, have been married for 3 years, dating for 6. He has an ex-wife, 37F, which he divorced a year before we met. We have a son, 7M, who was adopted after we got married and who I love as my own child, because he is. I know my husband, Peter, fake name, is bisexual. I have no problem with it and I had no problem with his ex-wife, Allison, also fake name. I did have a problem with his family as they're a bit homophobic and are always telling Peter he should get back together with Allison. Well, 2 weeks ago, we were at his family's town because it was my son, Jack's, fake name, birthday and we wanted to spend it as family. My mother-in-law decided it would be a good idea to invite Allison, so she arrived in the middle of the party. I didn't want to ruin Jack's birthday, so I stayed quiet. I spent all my time with Jack, playing with him and his cousins at his request. When it was time to cut the cake, I noticed Allison and Peter weren't there, so I went inside and looked for them around the house. I found them in Peter's old bedroom taking their clothes off. I stood there in shock for a moment, but then I left and went back to celebrating Jack's birthday. Part of me wanted to scream and cry, but I also was in shock and I refused to make Jack's birthday about me. We cut the cake and opened the presents. People were already leaving when Allison and Peter came back. Peter took me aside and started saying that I shouldn't have cut the cake without him present and it was disrespectful. I stared at him and just said, "I'm sorry, I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." He got quiet, so I took Jack and left the house to go back to the hotel. Once I put Jack in bed and made sure he was asleep, I locked myself in the bathroom and broke down. I called a friend and he tried his best to console me. I only calmed down in the morning when I took Jack for breakfast because I didn't want him to see me like that. I'm now watching him play in the park and I don't want him to suffer. I don't want him to have a broken family. I don't want him to know that relationships aren't a happy ever after. Peter has been calling and texting, apologizing for everything, and I'm tempted to forgive him. I'm tempted to just have my family back, and all my friends are saying that it was just a mistake, that he was vulnerable and Allison is his ex-wife. So what am I supposed to do now? I need the advice from people who don't know my husband or me personally. Please, any advice is helpful. Comments where Op has replied. Commenter 1. Teach your son that his future partners has to respect him in their relationship by not being a cheating bastard. Oop, I do want to teach him this stuff, but he's too young and I'm just scared that he'll get a bad view of relationships if he sees his parents divorce. Oop on collecting evidence on his husband's cheating and if the husband has done this before. Oop, from what I've been able to gather from the messages and calls, it has happened twice, including the time that I caught them. I hadn't thought about STIs, so thank you, I'll get tested. Oop responds to multiple comments about his husband not respecting him and the cheating wasn't the first time. Oop, it's not, I found out it's the second time, but I don't want my son to know what happened. He's unaware and happy thinking his dads will be together forever. I don't want to break that illusion. Why didn't Oop interrupt his husband's cheating with the ex? Oop, I was really too shocked and hurt by what I saw that I just stood there without them noticing me. I then heard my son and unconsciously focused on him and only him. A copying mechanism maybe? I don't know, I was mostly in autopilot. Update 1, September 14, 2024. Well, first of all, I want to thank you all for your advice and I want to explain some things before the actual update. But, thank you for opening my eyes about my situation. 1. Peter and Allison didn't notice me when I saw them. There was music very loud downstairs and they weren't facing the door. 2. I didn't stop them because I was in shock, I just stood there for a moment and I heard my son so I unconsciously focused on him. I was pretty much in autopilot. 3. Peter didn't come to the hotel with me because I changed to a different one. He did try to follow me but I took a taxi and left. As far as I know, he's staying with his parents and Allison left. 4. We met when I was 20 and he was 30, we started as friends, and we ended up dating. Yes, we're both men and no, I didn't feel manipulated or groomed by him. Those were the most asked things and I did answer some comments, not all. Now on to the update. I did as some of you said and took some tests to discard any STIs or STDs. The results are coming back in a few days, and I will take another one in 3 weeks to be sure. My son is having a sleepover with a friend and I decided to speak with my husband. He came by our house after a few minutes. I texted him. He asked about Jack and I told him where he was. Then we sat on the couch and started talking. I started crying after a few minutes and he followed after. I asked some simple questions: when? Why? How many times? Among others, and this is what I could figure out by all the things he said. It happened for the first time when he visited his parents alone 2 years ago. They invited her, they both got drunk, he was feeling lonely as I had been more attention to Jack since we adopted him, and they slept together. Nothing happened again until our son's birthday party. He said his mother pressured him a bit and he caved in. I don't believe he did it for that reason, but I don't know. He said he doesn't love her and I believe him, but it doesn't negate the fact of what he did. After talking for a while, I told him that I wanted a divorce. He started sobbing and begging for another chance, but I told him that I can't give him another chance because I wouldn't be able to trust him again and I don't want that in a relationship. He kept crying and begging for another 30 minutes until I told him that we have to think about Jack and his well-being, that we could stay friends DS and co-parent him. He got mad, really mad. He started yelling that it was all Jack's fault, that we shouldn't have adopted him, that he's the one who's getting between us. I was crying and really scared. I had never seen him this angry. He hit the table and stormed out of the house. I called the house where Jack is staying at and told them if Peter shows up there, they can't open the door. After the little episode, I was scared that Peter would try to hurt Jack. I called my friend again, Thomas, and told him everything that happened. He came by and is staying with me until I'm better. Right now, I'm trying to figure out what to do and how to go on with the divorce. Update 2, September 25, 2024. Hi again. Sorry for taking so long to update, but it's been a chaotic week and I'm pretty shaken up, but I'll try to summarize it. My husband has been showing up at my work, following me, and calling me from burner phones. I was afraid he'd go after Jack like many of you said he would, but he didn't. He said a lot of stuff, but I'll try to write the important things. He said that he missed when we were just us, that I stopped paying attention to him when we adopted that Jack, that I wasn't his anymore. He said that he missed how dependent I was on him. I was very insecure when we met, but I started working on my issues when we adopted Jack because I didn't want to be a bad example for him. When we got married, I used to get sick all the time. I was weak and tired, so he would take care of me 24/7. The doctors couldn't tell what was wrong with me and I didn't get better until a bit after we adopted Jack. I guess that dependence, it's what he missed? Yesterday, he followed me to work and started screaming that I was his and that we made vows to stay together. We had to call security and he waited for me next to my car. I panicked and took a taxi home. He keeps messaging me and showing up to our house. I took a few weeks off work to be with Jack, although he's taking this better than me. I made an appointment with a therapist for him, and when the divorce is finalized, I'll go to one myself. I've been debating what to do, so I'll update when something happens.